Parliament is back for another year and it's high drama in Canberra.
I wouldn't have that much hope.
Hello.
Right-wing politics in Australia is undergoing a radical realignment.
Well, less than an hour to go now.
Decide whether to stick with Susan Lee or turn to Angus Taylor.
Got some breaking news. Angus 34, Susan Lee 17.
Angus Taylor now leads a party on the brink.
If an election was held today, our party may not exist by the end of it.
But will a change of leader avoid electoral wipeout? One Nation has surged ahead in multiple polls, demolishing the coalition's standing.
You see the people are on the move, the polling's correct. I see it. I've walked into hotels and even as recently as this weekend, people start clapping.
Parties like One Nation, they don't get the answers right, but they can tell you the problem.
But there's a much bigger battle still in play. Angus Taylor may have won the leadership contest, but this is still a party divided, even in its conservative wing. On one side is a group led by the new leader who says a traditional approach is the way to win back government.
We're in this position because we didn't stay true to our core values.
On the other side is a group led by Andrew Hastie, pushing for a more populist, radical change.
What we really need to talk about is immigration.
Helped by a lobby group gathering strength.
We need people committed to the cause who will go all the way to the end to win.
Oh, the Liberal Party needs an enema.
The most successful party in the country's post-war history is at an existential crossroad.
Well, the average Australian is a 37-year-old woman. The average Liberal Party member is a male in his 70s.
Four Corners takes you inside the revolution on the right of politics. With the popularity of One Nation surging, there's a battle inside the Liberal and National parties about whether to emulate the populist strategy of Donald Trump and the UK's Nigel Farage, or stick to the economic tradition of John Howard and Peter Costello. It's a fight much bigger than the personalities and ambitions of the central characters. It's a contest between those who change the entire direction of their party and those who believe that would mean political death.
Well, first of all, we mourn and pray for those killed, injured and traumatised by this.
It's December 15, the morning after the Bondi terrorism attack, and Barnaby Joyce is framing the atrocity around multiculturalism and Australian values.
The culture that was represented in those murderers is untenable in Australia.
Just a week earlier, he had defected from the Nationals to join One Nation.
It's about growing the team and bringing on other people to enhance what we have to offer, and people will look at One Nation with a different focus.
I, Madam Deputy Speaker, do not believe in multiculturalism. I believe in an Australian culture. We have to, Madam Deputy Speaker, say the things that in the past would be called politically incorrect. We have to become strong.
Why One Nation?
I feel a very strong philosophical alignment, not on everything, but with most things with One Nation and in discussions over a long period of time.
You said not on everything.
Yep.
What not?
Well, there's certain things that work for Pauline that don't work for me, and I'll give you a classic one, the burqa, right? That is not something that works for me. It works for Pauline, but does not work for me. You know, I'm standing for the Senate in New South Wales, not in Queensland, and I understand because I've been a senator in Queensland. These are two different states, and I have to be relevant in Sydney, especially in the western suburbs of Sydney.
The leaders of this nation.
Barnaby Joyce's decision angered his former colleagues, including Senator Matt Canavan. How worried are you now that One Nation may become more competitive under your best mate, Barnaby Joyce?
Well, One Nation is a serious threat to us because, as I say, I believe we've failed people in recent years. In terms of Barnaby, yeah, look, of course, that is going to hurt us. He is a political rock star.
It's Sunday afternoon, mid-January, and politicians have been forced to return to Parliament weeks earlier than planned to consider new laws in the wake of the Bondi attack. Liberal MPs arrive knowing it's a critical moment for their party. Different camps are vying for influence over their party room. And all of them are trying to keep One Nation and their star recruit at bay.
How are you?
Debate on the hate speech bill deepened fractures in the Liberal Party and caused the Nationals to walk away from the coalition. It also made Susan Lee's already fragile leadership more precarious. Right when the first news poll of the year confirmed the Liberals' worst nightmare. One Nation had just overtaken them.
This is the first poll in Australia's history that another party is polling higher than one of the major parties. I am proud to acknowledge One Nation is polling higher than the Liberals.
I want your assessment of what's happening with One Nation.
They are the most formidable they've been in their 30-year history. There's this enormous economic insecurity which is breeding grievance, which is breeding, looking for a vehicle to express that frustration, and One Nation is filling that void.
Tony Barry lives and breathes the Liberal Party. As a former strategist, he's helped shape its direction, and now as a pollster, he's watching it evaporate.
Well, I think the problem is the Liberal Party has no identity anymore. It's not defined. It used to be a party about economic management and economic security for families, for pensioners and superannuants, for young people to get into the market, property market, and to get established. But they gave away the economic narrative for free at the last election.
Last year's election destroyed the Liberal National Coalition's position in Parliament. A party needs 76 seats to win government. The coalition only won 43. The latest polls suggest they would win even fewer seats than that if an election was held today.
I think there's a structural vote problem for the Liberal Party in Australia, and that is the millennial and Gen Z voting class, which at the next election is projected to make up around 47-48% of the electoral roll. So these are huge voting blocks, and the coalition is just not competitive at the moment. With the Gen Z voting class, they're polling around 18% primary vote. Now that's catastrophic. Around 1 in 4 Gen X men are currently intending to vote One Nation.
Now, it is an alternate political view.
Capitalising on its newfound popularity, One Nation is well on its way to launching local branches in every federal electorate in the country. Senator Matt Canavan is opening the door to a run for the lower house to beat them.
Are you going to move to the lower house? Have you thought about taking them on?
Look, I will see what happens. I'm open to what might happen in the future for me.
Yeah, you are thinking of it, aren't you?
Well, I might give it a shot.
You think One Nation is capable of being properly competitive with the coalition?
Yes, I do. And I think it's really, I do hear arrogance, you could never be a party of government. I've heard that, to be quite frank, from a good friend Tony Abbott. You can't be a party of government. Says who? You know, as the other people endowed from God? Is there something constitutional that says that politics can't change? It is changing. It's changing all around the world. It's changing in England with Farage. It's changing in France with Le Pen. It's changing in Italy with Milano. It's changing in the United States. We're actually last of the party, not first.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nigel Farage.
In the United Kingdom, Nigel Farage's right-wing Reform UK party is sweeping the polls. It could defeat both Labor and the once dominant Conservatives at the next election.
I am now leading Reform UK, and we are now topping every opinion poll in Britain.
More than 20 current and former sitting Tories have defected to the minor party.
Welcome to Reform, Andrew Rosenden.
Reform UK is populist, opposing elites or the establishment, like the traditional major parties. It's appealing to frustrated people who believe the system is failing them. And Farage is watching Pauline Hanson use the same playbook.
Clear consistency from Pauline is one of the reasons she's doing well, and the likely outcome of this is that she will completely realign the centre-right of Australian politics, and who knows, once that happens, they might even start winning elections.
Whether the more populist approach of Reform UK or MAGA in the US is the path to success here is dividing the Liberal Party, with one side insisting it should stick to its traditional principles.
Our plan is a supply-side agenda to grow the economy and ensure we beat inflation sustainably. It's a strong Liberal plan in the tradition of Peter Costello and John Howard, grounded in economic responsibility and driven by enterprise.
The basic philosophy of the Menzies brand of liberalism was to encourage enterprise by providing a climate favourable to its growth.
I believe in the individual. I believe in the family as the cornerstone of our happiness and of our nation. I believe in free enterprise and reward for hard work.
Middle Australia is where the Liberal Party has pitched its message for more than 80 years.
For 80 years, the Liberal Party's strength has come from balancing two great traditions: freedom and enterprise on the one hand, family, stability and national pride on the other.
New South Wales MP Angus Taylor was the main threat to Susan Lee's leadership from the traditional Conservative wing of the party.
It's time to revive what makes us Liberal.
He narrowly lost the leadership vote to Susan Lee after last year's election.
Well, good afternoon. Today I can announce with David Littleproud that the Liberals and Nationals are back in coalition.
Earlier this month, Susan Lee made a deal with Nationals leader David Littleproud to reunite the coalition.
Anyway, let's keep moving. We're going back to work for the Australian people.
The compromise which she agreed to divided her party room further. Hours later, a Fresh News poll declared her the most unpopular leader in a quarter century. And days later, Susan Lee was gone.
Over the last 9 months, according to the most recent opinion polls, 2.1 million have since deserted the coalition. If it goes on, there'll be nothing left of the Liberal Party by the next election.
The result, as I'm sure many are aware, was 34 to 17. Thank you very much.
It is important that the new leader gets clear air, something that is not always afforded to leaders, but which in the present moment is more important than ever.
Angus Taylor and his new deputy, Victorian moderate Jane Hume, declared a return to the party's core values.
One of the core things that I believe in strongly is getting access to markets. I don't like tariffs. I don't like tariffs being imposed on Australia, and I'm going to continue to fight for access to markets for our resources, our miners, our farmers, our manufacturers, our service providers.
There's a push inside your party for a more populist national approach, which is actually very anti-free markets, and it really wants to shun that approach. You're saying that you think free markets are still central and you want to put forward policy in the Howard Costello tradition.
Well, can I say the starting point for me on this is that we need to put faith in Australians to invest in the future of their businesses, and in doing that, they invest in their communities and they invest in this country. And in the process, they employ people, they serve customers, they pay suppliers, and we are all better off from that. But that can only come if we give the freedom and confidence to our businesses, small and large, in this country to get on with the job. Big government is not the answer here.
You said this is a change or die moment for the Liberal Party. What needs to change?
It's very clear that a big chunk of people who used to have faith and trust in the Liberal Party have walked away from us. The first and most important task in politics is to lock down your base.
Senator James Paterson is the Liberal Party's power broker and kingmaker from the traditional Conservative camp.
So you're moving to the right to appeal to the voters who are moving to One Nation?
So it's not really about left or right per se, but it is about demonstrating to our more conservative supporters that on issues like Australia's culture and national identity, on our symbols, on questions of values, that we are the traditional centre-right political party that they recognise. They want to see us stand up for things like the flag and the anthem and the Constitution and Australia Day and our Anzac tradition, because they see in us, or they hope to see in us, a patriotic Australian party.
But even the Conservative wing, there is more of a tension, you'd have to say, around the way forward, right?
Of course, there should be, right? We've just suffered our worst ever election defeat and then plunged even further in our public support since then, and our traditional supporters are telling us they don't recognise what we stand for and they think we're divided. So, of course, you would expect that there'd be a debate. There has to be a debate.
We are in an era where populists around the world are on the rise, and in Australia, One Nation's polling tells that story.
Sure.
You appear, correct me if I'm wrong, as a very traditional Liberal of the Howard Costello model. Is that something you lean into and you're proud of, or do you think perhaps you don't fit the times?
Well, I think what fits the times, PK, is an approach from the Liberal Party where we believe in economic freedom, where we believe that if the private sector is enabled to make investments, to make choices, they will make good investments and good choices that benefit all Australians. And that economic freedom, I think, is enormously important. Many of the populists around the world are not focused on those things.
One of the MPs seen as populist is Andrew Hastie, who will now be Taylor's main leadership rival within the party.
We have to take back control. That means killing net zero. That means getting power prices down. That means investing in manufacturing. And that means, to those on the other side, putting Australians first.
Member for Gorton has the call.
To the west of Brisbane in the Darling Downs region lies Toowoomba. The large inland city is in the seat of Groom and has been held by Liberals and Nationals for the past 90 years. Senator Matt Canavan is in town to talk to voters, alongside local Liberal member Garth Hamilton.
Are you worried about the fact that people want to vote for One Nation more than the Liberal Party?
No, I'm not worried about that at all.
Why not?
Because I think that even if the Liberal Party got into power as a minority government, I think they're close enough to One Nation in terms of policies and positions that they could work together.
We've seen Nigel Farage rise in the UK, obviously Trumpism in the US. Is that what appeals to you about him?
Yes, I'm probably more right-wing in the views of Trump and Nigel. I think they've got to have a firm something to unite the party, you know, just and get everyone on the same page.
Are you worried about climate change?
Not at all.
Why not?
I believe it's just a hoax, the whole thing. I grew up in the country and, you know, I think you know that you have all the seasons, flooding, droughts, you know.
If I go to metropolitan Australia, Sydney and Melbourne, and I speak to Liberals, moderates, they say there is no way a lot of what you're saying will work there. They cannot win city seats with some of this. What do you say to that?
I think that's a real challenge for the Liberal Party is that, or the Conservatives, the LNP Nationals, they've got all the Bush seats. They held on to those. Sydney, Melbourne, they've got to make penetration there.
What do you think the Conservative side of politics needs to do to kind of make themselves relevant?
I think the Conservative Party needs to have a very definite point of difference. They cannot make a statement or have a policy and then when it's disagreed with, cringe. No, we can't do that.
Matt Canavan and Garth Hamilton are among a vocal group who believe economic protectionism is the way forward. They think their parties must shift away from the Howard Costello era, which was defined by policies that favoured the free market.
Do I think that the Liberal national parties can win with an ideological pursuit of free trade and free markets? No, I do not. I do not at all. Because I'm not in politics to deliver free trade. The loss of energy competitiveness means that we have to reconsider how much manufacturing we want in this country and how we're going to keep it here, including by protecting some of it from outside competition.
I have to remind myself that we used to make cars in this country, but that's all gone. And both the Liberals and Labor have let us down in the past by letting the car industry disappear from our shores.
For months, Western Australian MP Andrew Hastie was casting himself as a possible leader of the Liberal Party, promising generational change and a more populist approach.
So yeah, I'm for Australians. I'm for putting Australians first.
He's a former SAS officer and has built a sizable online following.
We've got to focus on building up Australia and putting Australians first. We shouldn't be taking orders from the United Nations. We should be looking after ourselves first and foremost, getting power bills down and investing in our country. Authorised by Andrew Hastie, Liberal Party, Mandurah.
Garth Hamilton is widely acknowledged to be one of Andrew Hastie's lieutenants in the party.
You think he'd be a good leader, right?
Look, I think he'd be a great leader. I think he is a good leader. I think he's provided leadership for the party now.
How do you think the Liberal Party needs to change?
I think there's some big questions that we should be looking at for how we want to change that deal with the issues of this idea of free markets and globalisation that we very strongly championed previously. We made those decisions before our biggest friend in the world put tariffs on us, before we had a trade war with China. The world's changed. Context has changed for some of our decision-making.
That would be a radical change for the Liberal Party, though.
There are some things that are perfectly reasonable for us to protect. I don't know why we shouldn't be looking at our manufacturing industry and seeing that as something that's crucial to our way of life, let alone, should I say, our capacity to defend ourselves. I don't think there's anything wrong with talking about taking a step into that space and making sure that it's there.
Andrew Hastie was a contender, and he's actually very much of this school of economic nationalism. It is very different to the economic rationalism. I'd love you to reflect on that divergence we're seeing inside the Liberal Party.
Well, Andrew's one of my closest friends in Parliament, and I think the extent of his divergence from mainstream centre-right economics has been overstated. I think he does believe, and he has said, he believes in free trade. He's not arguing for tariffs or protection. He believes in free enterprise. But he does see that the world has changed since the 1990s, and particularly we're in a different geopolitical environment, and that does warrant different public policy response.
He says he thinks the economic orthodoxy of the Howard Costello times is essentially for boomers, that it's a boomer headspace. I mean, that's how he sees it, and your new leader is very much of that boomer headspace, isn't he?
You know, I'm under 40, Andrew's only a little bit over 40, and it is our generation and those that below us who've got a raw deal when it comes to the housing market in particular. If you want them to be able to build wealth for themselves to get into the housing market, what do you need? More housing supply, lower taxes for them so they can accumulate wealth, and yes, also lower immigration so they're competing less with others.
Liberal Party rising star Andrew Hastie has pulled out of a potential leadership spill, admitting he doesn't have the numbers to win the top job.
Despite his very public campaign for a new kind of Liberal Party, late last month, Andrew Hastie withdrew from his leadership tilt.
Rumours of a spill have been rife since the coalition split last Thursday.
But by then, he'd already had a significant influence in the direction of the party. Since the last election, his group succeeded in dumping net zero climate emissions from the party's policy platform. His next campaign was immigration, which he linked to higher house prices. It soon became one of the party's top priorities.
What we really need to talk about is immigration. I think we need to narrow very dramatically those who we let into our country. I want to see people come into this country who speak English, who support Australian values. Numbers are one thing, but I think who we bring into our country is really important. They have to sign up to Australian values, which are fundamentally Judeo-Christian values.
I think it's an important question we should be asking ourselves. How do we know that the Australia we're building through our migration program is the Australia that the Australian people want?
Now, that to me sounds like you're talking about specific groups. Maybe too many Islamic people, too many Indian people. Is that what it's about, that ultimately you're actually talking about the kind of groups you're bringing in?
I think there is a conversation about making sure that you have the balance that is going to reflect a society that we want to see. I think if we got out of balance, you would probably find different challenges.
What's out of balance, though?
Well, I think if you look at how Australia's grown, we've had different community groups come over a long period of time. We've had areas of Australia that have, like Toowoomba here, there's enough room, people seem to meld in, it becomes a nice city with a whole range of different stories. But here's the test for balance. Out of that diversity, do you get a unity of purpose and direction?
Even though the debate about immigration was running wild well before last year's massacre at Bondi Beach, the language used by some politicians in the wake of the attack has sharpened towards Muslims.
Militant Islam is a cancer that must be cut from our communities before it kills more of us.
Radical Islamist extremism caused this.
I think the Australian Muslim community has to take some responsibility for the behaviours we've seen exhibited over the last couple of decades.
South Australian Liberal Senator Andrew McLaughlin thinks there's a danger in this hardline approach.
I think it's extremely unhelpful for those of us that have long-standing relationships with the Muslim community. We need to give them reassurance they're not being singled out. I'm a veteran of Afghanistan. I have very strong ties to the Afghan community. They're devastated post-Bondi. They're Australians. They've come here to escape radicalisation.
The issue of immigration is splintering the right side of politics. I've been leaked one of the proposals the Liberal Party is actively discussing, inspired by a recent UK Labor Party policy. If a country doesn't take back its citizens who've been rejected by Australia, then Australia would blacklist that country or potentially a zone within it and ban its citizens getting a visa here. This could include areas like parts of the Philippines, which have, in the past, been hotbeds for terrorism. Some moderates in the party believe it goes too far, but we understand the new leader is considering it.
We'll stand for an immigration policy that puts the interests of Australians first and puts Australian values at the centre of that policy. If someone doesn't subscribe to our core beliefs, the door must be shut. If someone was to import the hatred and violence of another place to Australia, the door must be shut.
So does that mean
future
you need to be careful about becoming one nation light?
Well, it's, you know, we are not seeking to be one nation light. Absolutely not, PK. But we respect the fact that those voters who might be thinking about one nation have reasons for wanting to do so, and we have to restore their confidence in us.
The world is changing, but making that worse is social media, which is pushing this outrage.
For years, Charlotte Mortlock has led a group dedicated to getting more Liberal women elected. She resigned from that group and relinquished her Liberal Party membership after Susan Lee was deposed last week. She believes the populists are trying to appeal to the fringe and it won't work.
One of the biggest things that I think is a problem is that we have politicians who have been completely algorithmed. We've always had the pub test, but people are replacing that with their social media feed, and they are thinking that the world is a place that it is not, and they are living in an alternative reality. And the huge concern there is that they're creating public policy for that virtual reality. There's people in Australian politics on both the far left and the far right. They speak with such a conviction that they are so certain that they have the finger on the pulse. They have their finger on their social media algorithm.
Supercharging the algorithm is conservative lobby group Advance. It's flooding social media with a fierce anti-immigration campaign and promoting a nostalgic vision of a whiter Australia.
Well, I think probably initially when it was set up, it was like, this is the right's version of Get Up. And that's awesome. We needed a vehicle like that. I just think that they have been very particular with who they're supporting, and it's certainly not moderate Liberals.
Hi, I'm Andrew Hastie.
There is no doubt Andrew Hastie is their preferred man.
In the cost of living crisis, the real people who are hurt live in the outer metro and regional areas.
Advance launched in 2018, but it's only in the last few years that its donations have skyrocketed to more than $13 million last year. That's more than double the donations to left-wing activist group Get Up and on par with the Business Council of Australia.
We're an independent grassroots movement, and we're not affiliated or connected to any political party. Media tend to think we're some fringe group, and that suits us just fine. We are happy to go underestimated. That's because over the last 5 years, we've been able to build a supporter base with serious back-end infrastructure to mount significant nation-changing campaigns. And we're doing it on a national scale, something that's never before been done in this country.
Four Corners has confirmed that senior Liberal strategists are concerned Advance is cannibalising the donations that would come their way, and that it's being helped by Liberals like Jacinta Namatjinpa-Price, who is a prominent speaker at Advance's Blockbuster conference this month.
And in Australia, where we express national pride, not national guilt, like so many on the left feel today.
There's also internal anger that Advance has attacked Liberals it sees as having moderate views, including Susan Lee, Andrew Bragg and Tim Wilson, particularly given it received a $500,000 donation from a Liberal Party-linked fund, the Cormack Foundation.
I don't think people should give any money to any organisation that campaigns against Liberal MPs unless their objective is to see Labor, Teal or Greens MPs elected. So I would dissuade anybody from doing that. I don't see that it serves any purpose.
Andrew McLaughlin was targeted by Advance last year after he criticised the tone of debate around immigration.
You criticise the term mass immigration. They're not the only ones using it, are they?
No, I don't think the term should be used. The way Advance has been using it is even more controversial because it is designed specifically to create anxiety, and from anxiety, fear, which is their business model. That is unhealthy, and no member of Parliament from a major party should be sucked in to using that language because it's an abandonment of your position as a leader. It is just totally wrong, ethically and morally.
Wow, what a great entrance, thank you.
The latest donations to political parties and third parties were released this month and revealed billionaire mining figure Gina Rinehart donated $895,000 to Advance last year through her company, Hancock Prospecting.
I'd also like to be a big thank you to Mrs. Gina Rinehart.
Rinehart has been a supporter of Pauline Hanson and One Nation for years.
Gina Rinehart, how much is she behind One Nation?
No, I don't. See, this is the other thing. People always have these ideas. Is a supporter, a philosophical journey person? Well, yeah, I'd say that would be a fair comment.
Have you had conversations with Gina Rinehart about joining One Nation, though?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. See, there you go. Absolutely. See, there you go. Scoop, no. Has she ever asked me? Scoop, no. Have I ever said to her, I'm thinking about doing it? Scoop, no.
Why not?
Because it just hasn't. She certainly contacted me afterwards and said, oh, well, you know, good on you. But you know what? I've got my mailbox with hundreds and hundreds of emails saying good on you.
So Gina did say good on you, though?
After I'd done it, yeah, but not before.
Advance declined to be interviewed for this program, but said, in our experience, people who run down Advance in the media always have an agenda of their own. Advance does not support any political party, but will always encourage politicians whose values and ideas align with our supporters and criticise those who don't.
There's been an attempt to silence and censor the membership of our party, including those who support Advance, because the idea is that, oh no, the politicians know better. You guys are all just out of touch and you're extremists and you don't realise what it takes to win elections. You've got to let the professionals, guys, run the show. How's that worked out? How's that worked out? Having the professionals, the pollsters, in charge of our political strategy. An absolute disaster.
I can tell you the small businesses in this country know exactly who is on their side. They know that the Liberal Party has always stood up proudly, backed them in and made sure the laws of this country say, chance your hand, go for your life, we back you because you back yourselves.
In the heart of his seat of Goldstein, Tim Wilson is listening to the concerns of his constituents.
I think one of the biggest problems we have, personally...
He holds the inner Melbourne seat by a razor-thin margin after winning it back from Teal independent Zoe Daniel last year.
Hi, mate. Happy New Year. You too, mate. How's business? What are you going to have? Can I grab a strong cappuccino, please? No, thanks. Hello, how are you?
Tim Wilson is one of a determined band of Liberals who refuse to surrender the party's future to the populist right.
You're one of the only urban Liberals left. That's it. There's not many. Is the direction the party is moving in palatable for your kind of constituents? Can you win without more of those urban seats, and do you need to change direction?
We can't win Australia if we don't win urban Australia. It's not about my preference, it's about a simple reality, one of the most urbanised countries on earth. And how do we do that? I don't believe that's by narrowing our base, I think it's by broadening it.
The Liberal Party now holds just 9 of the country's 88 urban seats. It's lost 6 inner-city seats to Teal independents who campaign strongly for action on climate change. Now the coalition has dumped its support for net zero emissions, which could hurt it further in these seats. Moderates are arguing for the party to return to a stronger policy on climate change.
We'll not just argue the case, fight for the case, campaign for the case, win the argument and build a better future.
Looks like you're not winning at the moment.
Well, I wouldn't quite look at it that way. I think every conversation has multiple steps in it. And I think one of the most important things is where the conversation is going next. We've had some debates and we've chosen to pivot on some conversations, but they're not over in terms of what additional policy may come next.
Tim Wilson told me, this isn't over, this needs to be revisited. Do you think that issue needs to be revisited?
Yes, and I'm going to advocate continuously for it to be revisited. I'm worried about our commitment as it's perceived by the public to the environment. I'm concerned with the multicultural groups or community groups that I am involved with perceive a lack of compassion for those that settle in Australia.
Well, I think at the moment the Liberal Party is a man drowning, not waving. And so their future is entirely dependent on shaping an economic narrative that appeals to those Liberal-coded voters out there to grow their primary vote. The danger for the Liberal Party is if it moves to the fringes, it'll start getting fringe political results. There's simply no pathway back to government without winning some of those Teal seats.
Winning those inner-city seats will be hard if the coalition is dependent on one nation to form government.
You would be interested in being involved in a coalition government with the Nationals and the Liberals?
Of course. That's the only way to move forward, because I'm not going to be government, and either is, by the looks of it, either is the coalition or the National Party.
Do you think the coalition could govern with one nation?
No, we're not looking for any more dance partners. As you might have seen over the last 9 months, we've had enough challenges managing our existing dance partner. I don't think we need a third one.
The March for Australia rallies on Australia Day drew together an emboldened group of voters and an open display of support for a ruthless line on immigration. It's clear that messaging is working for One Nation's polling. But whether there's a limit on the number of votes issues like this will attract is the existential question facing the Liberal Party.
I think the real debate is between those who think that we're just a little bit off and those who think we're a long way off. I think we've been a long way off for a little while now. And I think that's the real source of tension here. Do we just keep kind of just refining where we've been and making small changes? Or are there some significant departures to how we've been working that we need to do?
So what is the future for the Liberal Party then? Is it going to live or die?
The Liberal Party needs an enema, but I think, its future can be secured, but only if it pivots to that economic narrative and differentiates from Labor with some bold policies. The pathway back for the Liberal Party is not to keep on shadowing One Nation with those policy agenda settings, but to offer some economic hope, and that might be in the form of income tax cuts, addressing some of the structural problems in the economy, to show that there is hope for the future. Because at the moment, they're just creating and chasing noise.